Welcome back to another in our series of episodes called BC City Connection. It's the official City of Battle Creek podcast, Battle Creek, Michigan. I'm Richard Pyatt. Today, we're going to learn a little bit about community development. In particular, we will meet the City of Battle Creek's Community Development Fellow for 2025 and 26, and we'll understand what her charge is all about. And so, without further ado, let's do that. I want to welcome to the program Tiana Williams, who is the CDAM Fellow for the City of Battle Creek, and Darcy Schmidt, Planning Supervisor in the Planning Department at the City of Battle Creek. Welcome to you both. So let's understand this particular fellow, as it's called, is something that is derived from a partnership with the CDAM organization, which stands for Community Economic Development Association of Michigan, and the MEDC. Those are letters you may be a little more familiar with, Michigan Economic Development Corporation. Darcy, start by talking about what the Community Development Fellow program is all about.
Yeah, it's a great program to help develop people into community development specialists. It's an opportunity for those that are interested to apply for this position and go to a community for 15 months, and they get to choose which community that has, several communities that have applied for this will choose their top 3 candidates, and they will get to choose which one of those 3 that they would like to be a part of. And so this is a great program for the communities. It's a great program for the fellows. They usually learn a lot in that time period, and Tiana has a really unique situation where she is working with 3 of the managers, one in the economic development, one in the planning division, and one in the community development division. Even though I am her direct supporter, I help her with these projects. She has 3 different types of projects that she'll be working on. So we're really excited to have her on board.
This is a pathway for someone who is interested in community development as a career to gain experience while also helping the city in which they're working. Is that right?
That's correct.
When you conceive of the idea that you're going to have a new team member, but you're also trying to make it a valuable experience for them, what does that mean?
That's a good point. The CDAM manager is been a very good resource to help work with us and work with Tiana. It is our job too to make sure that she has a variety of teaching situations, introducing her to different boards and commissions, taking her out in the public, meeting the community, meeting business owners, and having a well-rounded experience, and not just be working on the projects that we have provided for her. CDAM also provides training for them outside of the job that they do for the city, and they do team building exercises with other fellows. So it's a really good program. And it was interesting, a lot of the applicants were not or did not have a planning or an economic development background.
Ah, that's interesting.
Yes.
Tiana, welcome to the program. Tell us what motivated you to apply for this position.
Well, I had been working in some form of community development my whole life, started in childhood. And so prior to applying for the fellowship, I had been working in the housing response system. I'd done it as a service provider, then as a coalition builder, and then as a consultant. And so it was during that time that I began to kind of put things together. I like to think in systems, right? It's like we are working on a symptom. but what if we had some preventative measures in the planning of our economy, of our housing? And so that really drove me to apply for CEDAM. I was also, and I am still pursuing a master's degree in human-centered design thinking and innovations at Cornerstone University. And so just having that educational perspective and that background, kind of like that systems thinking, and seeing the dialectical relationship between housing and the economy, it was just the right move in my career pursuit to emerge in the community economic development field.
So, what is your ultimate goal? What do you think the path is, given all of this experience, this fellow opportunity, the degree you're getting? Talk about where you think the path is going.
I think every day that I come into work, just working in the different departments, community planning, and in the business, sometimes it's like, oh, I really like this thing, and I really like this thing. I see immediately emerging of consultation in different communities from different projects. So maybe might be planning or might be community development. But I think that every day as I'm in this fellowship, I'm learning more and more where my skills are best highlighted and where my interests might. So it's a bit open, but I would like to have a flexible career in maybe consulting.
So you talked about having had this interest since you were young. What inspired that, and what made those connections for a young person? When you think about community development and involvement, sometimes folks think of a young person not necessarily maybe even aware of these kinds of opportunities. Talk about what that was like for you.
Well, I think I owe it all to the way that my parents brought me and my siblings up. There are 9 children. I know, right? And I'm in the middle. So think about community. There's already a community in the house.
Wow, that's true.
But when I was 8 years old, my family began emerged in the real estate business. And it wasn't until my mom told me her story of how she was first interested in it. She had a landlord who was very, very generous and kind to my family. There was a time where they could not afford to pay rent, and the landlord helped them out and worked with them. And so when my mom had the opportunity to kind of pay it forward in her business model, she made sure to do that. And so what that looked like at an early age, I saw my parents plant the seed of home ownership in the lives of their tenants. There's one situation that just sticks out to me. I remember being young and going to, at that time, we would collect rent in person. And one of my mom's tenants where they were on the phone with the utility company and they were asking for an extension. And so my mom just kind of took the time to learn about the situation. And she learned that every month this tenant would be short. They would come up short in their utilities. So she looked at what she could do, and she was able to work out something where the tenant was able to keep they were receiving benefits. They were working as much as they could possibly do, and they were receiving benefits for them and their children. And there was a gap though. So my mom was able to help close the gap so that she could still receive the benefits that she needed and still have her lights in her home. The model of business that my parents taught me was you can also have a business while taking care of those around you. And it's important that you take care of those whom your business impacts because it's that relationship, right? And so the other thing that really emerged me into placemaking was the principle of voluntold. So one day I was a teenager, my mom has this thing where if she sees someone in the community, they're needing help, she'll tell me and my siblings to go and help someone. So my brothers, she sent them down to help a gentleman in our community. He was working on a garden, and she sent them to help this gentleman. And they came back with a job, and I was like, "What? I want a job." And so, they just took me when they went to go fill out their paperwork. And little did I know, this was a new company, a new nonprofit in my community that was piloting a youth program. It was called the Youth Empowerment Project. And so the premise behind that was employing the youth in the community and around placemaking activities. So we had a lawn care service, we had a construction service, and we had an urban garden. I was working in the urban garden, which took, there were 3 empty lots in my community. And we went and restored those lots and made an urban garden. One day, while gardening, when we showed up for work, all of our beds were destroyed, right? And we were so sad. But that was an opportunity. While the feelings of sadness, like, oh no, our great work is destroyed, that was a turning point for me. Because at that moment, I looked across the street and I saw the neighbors just kind of looking, and they had been watching us when we worked. And so we were all sent home that day. And I just went across the street and I just started talking to people. And what I learned, that there were people in my community who had a close relationship with growing food or had family members. So I went back to our team and to the executive, and I talked to them about finding a way to incorporate the community in that. And so they did. And when we did that, the garden was protected, right? It became a joy in the community that everyone felt involved in. And so the 2 major lessons that I would say would be the seed was, when you are building community, make sure that you're taking the people in the community along with you. You can have a good idea, but if it's not a collaborative idea, then, while it might have some impact, there could be a gap in the outcomes. And then also, when I am creating a business, or when I have a business of my own, also make sure I'm taking care of not only those who I'm servicing, but those around me, because that's that symbiotic relationship.
That's a buy-in, a community buy-in.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow, Darcy, listen to this. I could listen to these stories all day.
Yes.
I think when we think about community planning, it really is about building these connections and relationships. And maybe we don't think about that as much, perhaps, as residents and taxpayers and all these things. We're so busy with our own lives. But this is really what planning is about, isn't it? The community
Absolutely.
aspect.
Absolutely. We don't have a job without the community aspect.
The degree that I'm pursuing is a business degree. It takes, and forgive me for saying this, but I said the MBA might be obsolete when it comes to this, because it takes the business perspective and it centers humans around it, and truly it uses a scientific method to create innovations in the business industry. And so a city is a business, right? But how do you make that business work for the organization and the people that it is impacting and serving?
So, Darcy, talk about what Tiana just said and how that reflects on your vision for the Battle Creek Planning Department.
Well, this is not just the planning department, but the business division and the economic division of the city, and the community development. All 3 of these projects are really revolved around, how can we reach out to the community? How best can we get out to the community? One of the projects that Tiana is wrapping up right now is our consolidated plan. And this plan basically, lays out how the money that the city receives from the federal and state government is spent. And we need to find out from our community members that need this money and that live in this community, how to best spend this money. And this is part of what we were doing. We've learned learned lessons about where we're falling short of reaching certain community members. How can we do that differently the next time around? Can we do that differently in different projects? She is working with John Hart to put together a business plan. It is so important to get these entrepreneurial businesses into the community. These people typically have no idea how to start a business plan. This will give them step by step, give them resources, help them put together a business plan, and help them start a business in the city of Battle Creek, use up some of our vacant spaces, make it a more vibrant community. The other project that she will be working on quite soon is our housing plan for the master plan. We have such a high need for housing, and we have a consultant that will be on board shortly, and Tiana and Helen and I will be working together with this consultant. How do we reach the broadest range of people? How can we get not just residents, but builders? We're trying to get these houses built with local builders. We're working with a large group. I think we had talked to you about our steering committee is made up for these processes, is made up of all of our nonprofits that are working for the same cause, to make it a better community, allow more opportunities for ownership, to figure out how to bridge that gap between rent payments and housing payments and things like that. So this group of people is wrapping up the consolidated plan and moving into the housing plan. And Tiana has been able to be a part of that pretty much from the beginning.
There might be a temptation to say, well, this is like an internship, but it really isn't.
No.
It's a position. There's a salary and benefits that's part of this. And
Yeah.
however, it's a 15-month position, right? So it has a distinct focus. When it comes to 15 months, you have to be ready to hit the ground running and participate in all that. Is that fair to say?
And I think it was important to us, it was really important to me to find someone that has the passion for this type of work. And Tiana definitely, in her interview, just reeked of passion for this type of work. So, and I see it every day in her. She gets the excited enthusiasm, and it's just going to get better when we can get out and start working with the community one-on-one a little bit more.
So Tiana, 16 months comes to an end, 15 months. What would you hope to see as a result of your participation in this by then?
I am so excited about actually all the projects. Right now, working heavily in the resource guide for entrepreneurs. I would love to see that fully operational. Also, just to see more so like how Darcy was talking about, we're going to do our best to reach the community where we weren't able to reach before. And just to see how that relationship builds. We have some strategies that our team have been talking about. So I'm just excited to see the fruits of our labor in that. And so, yeah,
well,
how that translates to the community.
Mm-hmm. Well, it'll be interesting to have an update perhaps and find out what all you've been involved in on the other end of this stretch. And we'll look forward to that. The Battle Creek City Planning Department, with this opportunity in conjunction with CDAM, the Community Economic Development Association of Michigan, and MEDC, Michigan Economic Development Corporation, to identify the Community Development Fellow, and that is Tiana Williams, with whom we've been speaking today, and some help from the Planning Supervisor, Darcy Schmidt. Thanks to you both.